Right, so I'm running out of lockdown and I'm thinking, Joanne has always told me I need to do a vlog that people would find my story interesting. So this is a little bit of a test to just see, actually, can I not cringe myself to bits while speaking on a video. Bear in mind, no makeup, so this is just a testing. So, her suggestion is tell my story for what it is to be me. I guess it's kind of weird because nobody thinks that their story is ever going to be worthy of listening to from other people. So, unless you're like Meghan Markle or somebody that's done something that's like really madly interesting. But sometimes when I suppose more just to have it kind of on document, I suppose, just kind of, if there's so much about our lives that actually even our kids don't know, or people that were experiencing stuff with us don't realize kind of sides of things. So yeah, I guess there's parts that actually are kind of quite interesting when I think of them. Sad parts that are tragic, sad parts, same as anybody's ups and downs. But so I thought I'd kind of just start off with a kind of a little tester about like me when I was born. My name is Imelda Doherty, and even just that kind of statement is just so laden of problems, not problems, but because actually on my birth certificate it is Kerry Imelda. I always remember being known to and referred to as Imelda all my life. And when I asked my mum about, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, why put Kerry? Why put Kerry first? Why not just call me Imelda Kerry? I'd waited all my life to kind of find this out. And she said to me, well, I don't know. She said it was your dad's idea. And he had passed away a long time before that. So I think it's probably because my initials then would spell kid, and he had a sense of humour, and he was like, so that's kind of what I go with. But so kind of even before that, my other birth cert would have said something completely different, because I was adopted. I was adopted when I was 3 months old, which meant there was always a kind of side that I, growing up, didn't have a clue about, didn't know about, didn't have any clue about, because adoptions then are sealed in Ireland. It was like very, 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 you did not meet the person, you didn't know anything about them. Very, very limited you knew about them. I knew that my birth mother was from Dublin, that she was unmarried, that her parents had passed away, so she was unable to mind me. There's no benefits back then. There's no way of, we were talking about 1973, so it's like a, it's a whole different world, you can't imagine now. And that her giving me up for adoption was the hardest thing that she ever had to face and do. And it was always told to me as something that was very, very loving and very caring. I never felt any kind of like, oh, she just abandoned me, or I never felt any nastiness or malice towards her. It was always, I mean, if literally the best possible way my parents could have ever dealt with it and explained it. It was absolutely, they were amazing. I never remember a time of not knowing. We had a storybook, and they'd read it to me every night about, like, I am adopted, my name is Mark, I am adopted, my sister Sophie is adopted too, adopted means blah 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 blah. And I can still see, you can still imagine the storybook now. And so it was never it just was what it was. It was like absolutely fine. And kind of growing up, that didn't pose any kind of identity crisis a problem in my very early years. I had an amazing family, and I get very annoyed when people will say things like, oh, well, what about your real parents, or my real parents are the people that brought me up. They're the people that put through up my teenage years. They're the people that, like, gave me a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful life. I have a birth family, yes, that's absolutely fine, but the term real, I get really angry about it. And I watched an interview recently with Nicky Campbell, who's written a book about being adopted, and he said the exact same thing, and it was like, oh my God, you're just speaking my language. I know exactly what you mean. So yeah, so it was like that in my early years didn't pose much of a problem, but as time went on, it was kind of like felt a disconnect, I suppose, a real, you know, I was quite felt that kind of, you know, in school people were like, oh, what you're like a mongrel, or you're like this, or you're like that, you know, and it's like, it was difficult at times, and I think probably because we were quite, I mean, I grew up in the west of Ireland, very Catholic Ireland, which is fine, except my dad was the Church of Ireland minister. We were Protestants in a very, very predominantly Catholic area during the 1970s. So I didn't feel hatred towards us. I didn't feel there wasn't. We were removed from that kind of the troubles that you would have found in like in the north of Ireland, or in Dublin, or in the kind of areas that were targeted for bombings and stuff. We would have been very, very removed from that. But saying that, I mean, Kerry was very, I mean, maybe one in every four people were not IRA supporters or sympathisers, not necessarily actively involved in, but it was very much a nationalist stronghold and community, which obviously we were not ever a part of. We were removed from, and kind of even within the sports and things, we weren't like I went to a very small Protestant primary school, and obviously my dad would have been that partly in the head of that, as you know, and it was right next door to my house and the church. So it was lovely. It was a really, you know, it was a really gorgeous kind of protected upbringing, but it wasn't integrated in the same way into the wider community. And I felt, I suppose, that I wasn't integrated into the wider community for being like, I was adopted. I was in this different family. I was in this different community. It was this different, and I think over time those disconnects kind of. I made more of them, I suppose, than actually I should have done. I should have just accepted that, look, I'm in a lovely, wonderful family, and I'm, you know, happy and got everything that I need in life. But teenage years kick in, and I went a bit wild. Well, I went a lot wild. I went kind of, you know, a little bit off the Richter scale, and you know, 14, I'd started drinking, started getting into trouble, refused to go to school, refused to, just really rebelled against everything. I met my neighbour quite recently, and I loved how she described me back then. She said, I was fearless. I was reckless. I was stupid. I was crazy. I was like, ah. But yeah, so I liked her summation of being fearless. That works. But yes, I went wild. I got involved with very violent and nasty older person, and ended up in a very, very dangerous, violent, toxic relationship. And for the longest time, up until very recently, I've carried guilt and a pain in that. That I did that, I chose that, and I felt like I always had to make up for that. That it you know, that I was always going to fail because I was so bad, and I had done this wrong thing, and I had done this awful, you know, caused all this pain to these lovely parents that like just wanted a child to love. And as time has gone on, and things have changed in the law and in the way that we look at things, and we look at grooming now, and I see as a 14-year-old who was kind of groomed into being with a 23, 24-year-old man, who then became violent. I was a victim. But it never felt like that. I felt like I had made a choice, a lifestyle choice, to do all these really bad things that this was my doing, and I owned that guilt and responsibility. And I think I still do. I think I still do to a large extent. And I suppose partly maybe it's I've survived it now, so I'm looking back with hindsight. So maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's like, because I've owned it and I'm taking responsibility for it, then I'm also taking responsibility for the good things that I've done since. So, but it did carry a lot of pain for a long time, and I felt like I could never make up for that pain that I caused my family. And my dad died before I ever really had an opportunity to show that I could do better, that I was going to do better. Which again, that then reinstated the whole, like, I'm a bad person or a bad, human being that didn't deserve this opportunity of being adopted and brought into this lovely family. So yeah, there was a kind of a shitty first kind of 14, 15 years of life and crap, and then of course you kind of, when you get out of that situation, and I came home, I suppose I felt that I was always waiting for people to then wait for me to screw up again and to pull in the Malta or whatever. So I almost did it quicker to just have it out of the way, kind of thing. So it's like, just, well, they expect me to fuck up anyway, so I just fuck up now. And that kind of sabotaging behaviour kind of continued for quite some time. And this just shows how amazing and loving my parents were, because they never once weren't there to pick up pieces when I'd have a bit of a phase or a bit of a fit or a bit of a whatever. And they never went. I'm sure they must have thought, I wish to fuck we hadn't adopted her, but they never said it. Never, ever, ever, ever. They were amazing. They held that hope that actually I would eventually be a better version of me. Isn't that what we say nowadays? So yes, I guess this is my testimonial that I am a better version of me now. I found my way. I'm able to look back now in hindsight and see kind of not look for excuses as to why I did or wasn't or was or whatever. Just, I suppose, to brainstorm kind of like the kind of different pathways of my life and the different enjoyment of my life. So yes, so that was the beginning of me. I did find out much later on, as an adoptee that found her birth family, that my initial birth certificate, my name is Samantha. So, you can believe this or not believe this. This is completely up to yourselves. But when I was young, growing up, I loved Sammy Jo in Knots Landing. I thought she was so good. I mean, come on, it's Heather Locklear, like, what's not to love? So I always wanted to. Unfortunately, as a Protestant, you don't take confirmation names. Catholics take confirmation names, and I wanted to be a Catholic. I just, like, they got all the cool stuff, like confirmation names and money for the communion and all that. So I kind of in my own head, or to people who didn't know about me being Protestant later on in life, whatever, I would always say my confirmation name was Samantha. And that was long before I knew that was what my name was. So it was like, that was bizarre. Because there are weird coincidences in life, aren't there? They're just like fucking, I know if we end up like kind of living our life by these weird coincidences, generally they will drive us crazy, or people will say we're crazy. But these weird things did occur. And when I did meet my birth family later on in life, and I had 3 sisters that always knew about me. Well, the older 2 did. The youngest, Kelly, didn't get it landed on her until almost I was on their doorstep. But Natalie is 20 months younger than me. 20 months younger than me. And then Joanne is about a year and a half younger, 15 months younger than her. And Joanne, all her life, had a doll that she called Samantha. She would have known my name was Samantha, so I suppose that's not as kind of big a thing as me in the confirmation name. But yeah, so she always called me Samantha, and yet her birthday is the one that's closest to mine, and she was kind of really attached to this doll and stuff. And when June, my birth mum, had this, she only had one photograph of me that the adoption agency had given her when she signed the final papers. And she had that photograph all my life. And I had a teddy bear. She had given me a teddy bear called, well, I called him Master. From the one for the Master, one for the Dane, for the Baba Black Sheep, which is actually, now that I'm literally just thinking of it now, a bit ironic that I was a bit of a black sheep. But when we met when I was 23, she went back to London after she'd come over to meet with me, and she went back to London. She was going to get the photograph. No, when she was coming over, sorry, she was trying to find the photograph of me to bring it and show me, and it was lost. It's gone. It's like she had it in this like box in this place always, wherever she'd moved, wherever she'd gone back and forth quite a bit from Ireland to England and back, and she always had it, and it was as though it just got lost because she didn't need the photo anymore. She had the real thing. Lucky her. And it wasn't long after, I suppose maybe it was just that we stopped protecting the one thing we did have, because I lost Master. I don't know how I lost him, because we lived in the same house, but yeah, so we'd kind of like rekindled that union when I was 23, and that is going to be the next, provided I looked at this back and I don't cringe too much, because it's a bit like, I mean, you know, I think I'll do my hair. I'll tell you all a story about how we met and how we blended our families all together, because I think that's maybe just a one more final side note. When you think of what have I left in the world, what I do in the world, what's the good I've done in the world. I mean, I was a forensic social worker for 15 years. Apparently I've brought great joy into people's lives. I've brought great whatever, blah, 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 blah. I've had children. They've had children. But when I think of the one thing that I would like to be remembered for, I mean, I've written books. That's quite an achievement, isn't it? I haven't sold millions of copies, but the one thing I would always think I'd like to be remembered thing, and the one thing I'm most proud of, is I've blended a family. It has been my ability to chameleon and to kind of create and to cement and to pull families from all directions into being one unit of family and love. And I've watched my children, my proteges, so to speak, go and do that in their own lives. And that started from being adopted. That started from being disconnected. That started from a feeling of not being included in my identity and my role in the world. And I'm really, really proud of that, because I watched my daughter do that seamlessly with her family and stepfamily. And my stepdaughter, who I'm loath to call my stepdaughter because she's my daughter, I'm literally living for the next couple of days because she's coming down to see us, and I can't wait. I miss her so much. Like, she's as much my child as my birth kids. Me and her dad aren't together anymore. That don't matter. It doesn't matter to either of us, because that commitment is made. That family is bonded and gelled, and she has done that in her world, because she's taken on children, the child of her brothers, and brought her in and made her a family home and made her just as important. And I watch them with such pride doing that, because I think I've taught them how to do that. I've taught them how to make a group of people family, not because of blood, not because of a feeling of obligation, but of a feeling of, this is us, this is family. That is amazing. That is amazing. And I must point out my other daughter, my daughter-in-law, it was her that told me her that coined the term blended. She said, you blended your family. And I thought, that is amazing. That is a good term. I like that. Blended. Because we have. So we're all a bit odd and a bit different and a bit whatever, but we have blended. And that was my doing. So, I don't know, like it, love it, hate it, tell me to get lost. You know, this is me.